I'm going to take a minute and refresh my memory about what this is supposed to look like by clicking on the final product image. So all of the text on this page, including that H1 tag and all these paragraph tags that I added, should be quite a bit over from the left. I can tell how far by using my, in brackets, you know, it's 300 pixels-ish. And down quite a bit too, say 100 pixels. So 100 pixels down, 300 pixels over. And this really, it's all the same. It's all the same offset. So whenever I'm dealing with a whole set of things, a bunch of P's and an H1 in this case, I would wrap it in a div so I could move it as a unit in an easy way. Yes, I know. I could use a comma separator to style the H1 and the P's and to get, you know, margin them all over the same amount, but it really is cleaner and easier in my mind to put a container around them. So that's what I'm going to do now. And that has to take place in the HTML. So I'm going to say div ID equals container. Page is also a common thing to name this. I'm going to say container and end it here. If I'd like to beautify to get my indents right, I can do that now. And I think when I was doing this before, I took the C away by accident. Sorry. Okay, so now I have this, and as I refresh, it has no visible effect. So I already discovered that I needed to go 300 pixels over-ish and 100 pixels down. And it doesn't matter if I use margin or padding for this. I think I'll use margin. We'll view it in the browser so you can see the margin in the inspector. This I named container, so I'm going to make it a rule for it here. And because it's an ID, it starts with a pound sign. This is a good time to remember how to use the pound sign for an ID. And this was a margin top of about 100 pixels and a left margin of about 300 pixels. Let's see how that looks. Save and refresh, and there we go. That's working out well. The thing that's not working out well is all this dangling off the right-hand side. So let's have a look again at the mock-up. And it looks like, so this overall pixel is 839 wide about. So that was 11 pixels over. So say we're talking about like 830 pixels here. Say 800 to be easy. And this text ends at about 660. Okay, so 660 over to 800-ish is, I can do math. So 660, 760 would be 100 added, so 140 pixels about over from the left, from the right-hand side. I'm gonna have to control the size of this thing. If I control using margin, then it's going to dangle off the edge. So I need to control this whole size. I can either set a width on my div here. I can set a width on the body. In this case, probably that's a good idea. And then I can control with margin on the right-hand side. This is my preference. So my choices here are I can put a width on this T-Story text container that I ID'd container and give it a width of like, say, 700. I'll show you what that looks like. It would be a totally fine thing to do. I'm going to show you a couple of different options. So I could say width 700 px. This is going to be a little bit of trouble because I'm going to run into my margins. I'm going to have to do some math in a minute. So save and refresh. So that would be good except for the 300 pixels extra that I didn't take into account. So I want a 700 pixel overall width here, but I've already used up 300 of the margin. So really I want a 400 pixel overall width. 700 minus the 300. Save. There we go. It's looking pretty good. I have a little bit of cruft down here at the bottom because I need to add some margin to the bottom too, which I will do now. I don't really know how much here. That's fine. Okay, so that's fine. So this would be fine to do. Let me show you what it looks like in the inspector so you can see the difference between this and what I'm about to do next. So what I'm seeing here is The blue part that is highlighted is the width of my container, and all the orange part around it is margins. So I haven't set any margin on the right. That's just default margin the browser has filled in. I set 100 pixels on the top, 300 on the left, and then I set 150 on the bottom, and I said that it was 400 pixels wide. Totally fine to do this. My other option, which is equally valid, is to set an overall width on the body. And the only reason I'm mentioning this is when I have a set fixed width background image, like I do in this case, I will usually try to set the overall width of the element based on this background image. In this class, we start with fixed width layouts and we kind of transition into relative layouts. So where it's a little bit more fluid, the background images move and resize as you resize your browser. But in this one case, I would set the width on the big container and then do the rest with margin or padding. So this is what I mean. I'm going to leave these here, but I'm going to comment these out, these two out. Instead, I would take a look at the background image, my box sides, and see that it's 755 pixels wide. We already know these are about 10, this actual sides of the box are about 10 away. So we're actually really looking at like 745 pixels of usable space. But anyway, 755 pixels wide. And then I'm going to go over to my style and say to the body, width, 755 px. And then I'll usually put width of the box sides.gif. If I have something this specific. It's nice that this is the same exact number as the box sides. It helps me just stay consistent and organized. Refresh. Okay, so this is already pretty good. Let's have it in the inspector. Here's my container. The orange is 100 pixels of margin on the top, 300 pixels of margin on the side, and now I can decide what to do with the right-hand side individually. How much margin would I like to put over there? I'm confined to that right-hand side 755 pixels anyway, so now I can shore up that right-hand side by adding margin or padding, but margin would be good here. Let's see that. Oh, I'm going to say 150 pixels of margin on the right-hand side and see how we get. Save, refresh. That may be a little bit much. It's pretty close. Good enough for now. And then I'll put that 150 pixels on the bottom again, I think. Let's take that. Let's put that back. Save and refresh. That's looking quite good. So this is my preference. In the inspector, you can see the difference. Here's my container. This width is not specifically set anymore. It's just squeezed into place based on the margin that I have set. This is my preferred way of doing it when I have a large background image like this on the back. We set the width on the larger container that contains the background image.